day. So the first thing we're looking at is questions 1 through 3. We want to state the degree and leading coefficient. So if we look at problem number 1, what's the degree? Because the degree is the variable with the biggest exponent, and the biggest exponent for this one here is and the leading coefficient would be? Because the degree is the exponent, the biggest exponent attached to a variable, and the leading coefficient is the number in front of it. So this first one here wasn't written in standard form. That's where we got the degree was from the negative 27x to the 8th. Number 2, the degree would be what? 4. The leading coefficient would be 6. At this rate, let's go on and do the last one. For number 3, the degree would be, and the leading coefficient is negative 27. It's just a coincidence that 1 and 3 have the same leading coefficient. Questions on 1 through 3. 4 through 7, evaluate each function for the given value. Which one of these do we want to look at? Number 4, negative 3x to the 4th plus 2x cubed minus 12x minus 6. If we evaluate for a given value, all we're doing is plugging in that value in place of each x and calculating this here. So negative 3 times negative 4 to the 4th plus 2 times negative 4 to the 3rd minus 12 times negative 4 minus 6. Well, at this point here, we can just type this all into the calculator. And we type this in, we get that it is negative 854. And that's it. Mm-hmm. 0. So we're replacing each x with 8. And now we just need to evaluate this here, so we can type this all into the calculator. So 8 to the 6th minus 64 times 8 to the 4th plus 8 squared minus 7 times 8 minus 51. And we get negative 43. Any other questions on 4 through 7? Because when we evaluate, we just plug in that value in place of x and then simplify. 8, 9, and 10. Determine if the following function is a polynomial. Well, if it's a polynomial, the exponents are not negative. The exponents aren't fractions. We can't have a fraction and an exponent. So we can't. If you're familiar with it, I wouldn't, but if you need to, I would write it down. Well, I mean, exponents cannot be what? Negative, fractions, or variables. So we can put that all in one statement, can't we? Variables cannot be inside a radical. Variables cannot be multiplied together. We can't have 2 different variables being multiplied together. And lastly, we cannot have a variable in the bottom of a fraction. X, Y. You got those written? You can get them in a little bit. Okay. So, number 8. Is number 8 a polynomial function?
No.
Why?
-1.
Because our x is -1. How about number 9?
Yes. No. I mean, yes. I was looking at this part.
Because all the x, is any of the exponents negative? So for these here on the review, yes. On the test, 8 through 10 and 1 through 3 would be together. So if it is a polynomial function, we have to state the degree and leading coefficient. If it's not, we just say no. Number 10 is no. So if it doesn't have negative exponents, fractional exponents, or variables in exponents, then negative and fractional is really just attached to a variable. Variables are not being multiplied together inside of radicals or in the bottom of a fraction. It is a polynomial function. Questions on 11 or 12? Add the two together. Since we're adding two expressions together, the first thing we can do is drop the parentheses. And then we're going to combine like terms. Always start with the variable with the biggest exponent, 12x to the 5th. But since no other part of this statement here has an x to the 5th, it doesn't have any other like terms. It's just 12x to the 5th. Our next ones we have are our fourth. We're going to combine our x to the 4th. Negative 3x to the 4th plus 8x to the 4th is, we're just combining at this point, 8x to the 4th minus 3x to the 4th, 5x to the 4th. Our next one's going to be our cubic term, our third power. Well, there's only one of them. So we just put it minus 3x to the third. Do we have x squared? So we don't even list it. If it's not there, it's not listed. Then we can move on to x. Our 2x plus 4x is? 6x. Guys, let's focus in here. And negative 5 and 1. Negative 5 plus 1 is? Negative 4. So really for this here, we drop the parentheses and just combine like terms. Which one do we want to look at next? So 13. Now 13, the first set of parentheses, we can just drop them because there's not a sign in front of it. So it's just going to stay the same. Now, since we're subtracting, we have to apply that minus, that negative sign, to everything in the second set of parentheses. So our positive 2x to the fourth becomes negative. Our positive 3x cubed becomes negative. Our negative x squared becomes positive. Our positive x becomes negative, and our negative 4 becomes positive. So we have to change the sign on everything in that second set of parentheses. Yep. Now, just like the last one, we're going to combine like terms. X to the fourth is the biggest one, so we'll start with it. 7x to the fourth minus 2x to the fourth is 5x to the fourth, because we're doing 7 minus 2. Our cubics. So our negative 9x cubed minus 3x cubed, negative 9 minus 3 is negative 12x cubed. Then we'll move on to our squares. Negative 4x squared plus x squared, negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3x squared. 5x minus x is plus 4x. And lastly, 6 plus 4 is plus 10. So our final answer for this here is 5x to the fourth minus 12x cubed minus 3x squared plus 4x plus 10. Questions on this here? You still have, what is it, 11 and 14. 11's addition, 14 is subtraction, so if you want to try those later, you can, and the answers are on the back. Questions on 15 or 16? So this is our multiplication. The first thing we're going to do is distribute the 2x. So we'll do 2x times 2x squared. Our 2 times 2 is 4. The x times x squared would be x cubed. Our 2x times 5x. 2 times 5 would give us positive 10. X times x is x squared. And 2x times 8, our 2 times 8 would be plus 16. And we still have the x. Now we're going to do this again with the 4. So we're going to distribute the 4. Our 4 times 2x squared would be plus 8x squared. Our 4 times 5x, 4 times 5 would be plus 20. And we still have the x. And lastly, 4 times 8 would be plus 32. Questions on this so far? Now we're going to combine like terms. At this point, we're going to combine like terms. 4x cubed does not have any like terms. But 10x squared and x squared are like terms. We'll add those together and get 18x squared. Our 16x and 20x are like terms, and if we add those two together, we get 6x. 32 doesn't have any like terms, so we add it on. So 4x cubed plus 18x squared plus 36x plus 32 is the final answer. Well, we multiplied first to get here. Then we combined like terms, yeah. Any other questions with 16? Questions on 15 through 19? Yes. Yeah, we're just multiplying everything by 6x cubed. Or 6x cubed times 2x squared. 6 times 2 would be 12. X cubed times x squared would be x to the fifth. 6x cubed times negative 27x. Well, 6 times negative 27 is negative 162 minus 162 x to the fourth. So we can multiply the numbers in the calculator, we just can't do the variables. And lastly, 6x cubed times 4 is going to be plus. Now there's no like terms, so we're done. Questions on 17, 18, or 19? Y'all want to look at 19 or 17? 19. Now with 19, we have 3 sets of parentheses. So what we're going to do is multiply 2 of them first, combine like terms, and then multiply again. So the first thing we're going to do is distribute the x. X times 3x, 3x squared. X times 1 would be plus x. Then we'll distribute the 2, negative 2. Negative 2 times 3x is negative 6x. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Both of the calculators need a value for x. So it'll just give you a number. Yeah. So are you good with what we did for 16?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Okay, so can you, so how did you do the 3 part? Like, I just don't understand.
Here?
We're supposed to multiply, like which direction?
This 3 here?
Yeah. Okay.
So almost what we're doing is acting like this whole piece is not here. And we're just focused on the first 2. We multiply them out. And I just put it on the end. So we're doing the same thing as what we just did, but we're just bringing the other one down. Because at this point here, we have 3x squared. Our x minus 6x would be negative 5x minus 2. Because the first 2, our x minus 2 and 3x plus 1, we multiplied it like we did on 16. Distributing it out and combine like terms. So we feel comfortable there. Now we just do it again. So almost we treat like this isn't here and we're just focused on the first 2. Once we finish multiplying those first 2, we're just going to do it again. 3x squared times 4x. 3 times 4 is 3x squared times negative 3. Negative 5x times 4x. Negative x, yep, negative 20x squared. Because if you're asking about the calculator, I mean, I can do negative 5 times 4 in the calculator, get negative 20. We have to do the x's by hand. Negative 5x times negative 3, well, negative 5 times negative 3 is plus 15, and we still have x. And lastly, we distribute the negative 2. Negative 2 times 4x is negative 8x. Negative 2 times negative 3 is plus 6. And lastly, we combine like terms. 12x cubed, or 9x, negative 9x squared minus 20x squared. When we add or subtract, the variables stay the same. 15x minus 8x plus 7x plus 6. Guys, let's focus in. Any other questions on 15 through 19? Number 20. Divide the 2 polynomials by synthetic or long division. So this one here, we can do this by synthetic. If we do this by synthetic division, the first thing we need to do is take what we're dividing it by, x minus 5, set it equal to 0, and then get x by itself. So we would. So x is 5. And the number that goes in the cubby is the one that we got when solving for x, getting x by itself. The numbers going across the top are the coefficients of what was being divided and the constant term. So x to the third would have 1, x squared is negative 10, x is 20, and our constant term is 26. If there are any terms missing, we fill them in with a 0. Incidentally, the number of numbers going across the top, not including the 5 in this case, is one more than the degree. Well, the degree here is 3, so we should have 4 numbers. Well, 1, negative 10, 20, and 26, that is 4. We do have them all there. Questions on this here? Now we do the synthetic division. We'll do 5 times 1, which is 5. Nice. Negative 10 plus 5 is? 5 times negative 5 is? Negative 25. 20 plus negative 25 is? 5 times negative 5 is? Negative 25. And 26 plus negative 25 is? 1.
Okay, so we add the ones that are on the row.
So we multiply by the number below. So 1 times 5 is 5. We put it under the next number. Add. Negative 10 plus 5 is negative 5. Multiply 5 times negative 5 and get negative 25. Then we add, get negative 5. We multiply, get negative 25 again. And add and get 1. The number in the box is the remainder. Which part?
I just need to memorize the going down.
Because we start off, we multiply this by 5 and put it here. Then we add, multiply. 5 times negative 5, put it here. Add, multiply, add, and we're done because we don't have another number after it. Now we put a box around the last number because it is the remainder. The number in front of the box is our term without x. The one in front of it is the term with x. We cannot. The number in front of that is the term with x squared. So it's telling us our final answer is x squared minus 5x minus 5. Then we add to it the remainder. Well, our remainder was over what we're dividing, which was that is fine. Yeah. 1x squared and x squared are the same thing. Questions on this here? Questions on 21 or 22?
I think we should do 26 since the longest one, so we can.
So we set what we're dividing by here, x minus 1 equal to 0. Indeed. We need to get x by itself, so we would add 1. Okay. And that 1 goes in the cubby. Now the degree is 4, so the numbers going across the top, we should have 5 of them. So our x to the 4th term is, our x cubed term is, x squared is 3, x is negative 3. And if there are any missing, if we didn't have an x cubed, x squared, x, or constant term, we would fill it in as 0. Now our first step in doing this here is multiplying by 1. Well, 1 times 7 is, and we put it under the next number. Negative 10 plus 7 is, and now we multiply again. 1 times negative 3 is, 3 plus negative 3 is, 1 times 0 is, 3 plus 0 is? 1 times 3 is? And negative 3 plus 3 is? Now, always put a box around the last number under the line because it is our remainder. The number in front of it is our term without x. The one in front of it is the term with x squared, x cubed, x to the third. So our answer is 7x cubed minus 3x squared. We don't need the 0x anymore. Plus 3. Now, whenever the remainder is 0, we do not have to add it in. We only have to add it in if the remainder is something other than 0.
So what do we do with the x before?
That is what we're dividing this by. And when we divided it, we got this here.
Does it matter if we use the 0 or x minus?
It's not right, but it's yeah, I'll take it, but you don't have to add it. Yeah, so it'd be plus 0 over x minus 1. But when 0 is on top, the whole thing becomes 0, so you're just adding 0 to it. Questions on 22. Questions on 23. This one here, we're going to do this one here by long division. Yeah.
I got it.
Okay. We're going to do this by long division. So we'd have x squared plus 4x minus 2.
Sorry, what? What did you do?
Hold up. Wait, what? Hold on.
All right.
You're working at your sports?
I can't write when I'm watching stop.
You can't write when you're laughing?
Yeah.
No, that's lucky it's a cake. Can y'all drink when you walk?
No, I
Thank
can't.
you.
I have to stop.
Thank you.
I actually have to stop my track.
I can't whistle when I or it goes up my nose.
Or I can't lift anything when I'm laughing.
You know those reasons to smile. I mean, I was literally just about to say can I whisper for that.
We get it written down.
That's crazy. I can't.
Okay, I feel that water.
All right. Doing this by long division. We get it set up. Now the first thing we need to do is eliminate the first term one at a time. And to do that,
That would be 2x to the crap. Come on. 2x squared.
so we need to see what we need to multiply x squared by to get it to be the same as our 2x to the fourth, so it'll cancel out. And it would be 2x squared. Now that we have that, we're going to come over to the side and multiply 2x squared by our x squared plus 4x minus 2 to get this to simplify.
Wait, okay, time out. How do we get 2x squared?
Because we need to eliminate 2x to the fourth, so we need to see what multiplies by x squared to get 2x to the fourth. Since the number in front of it is 1, we do need the 2. Now to turn x squared into x to the fourth, we need x squared. Now, when we multiply this here, 2x squared times x squared is 2x to the fourth. 2x squared times 4x, our 2 times 4 is 8. X squared times x is x to the third. Our 2x squared times negative 2 is negative 4x squared. At this point here, we put it underneath x squared times x.
You pretty much just add the x to it probably.
Because here I have 2. And we add one more to it with multiplication. So we have a total of 3. Because when we multiply like bases, we add the exponents. So x squared times x would be x to the third. Any other questions? And once we get this set up here, we're going to subtract. 2x to the fourth minus 2x to the fourth is 0. 8x cubed minus 8x cubed is
What?
negative 5x squared minus 4x squared.
Negative 4 plus 4.
The negative negative would make a plus. Negative 5 plus 4 would be negative 1
Oh, sorry.
x squared. And the next thing we would do is bring down the next term. And we would repeat the process, but since we don't have a cubic, because this spot was not filled, because it is 0, we bring the next term down. One other way we know that we'll need to bring another term down, because if I look at this here, x squared and negative 4x, I have how many terms? How many terms are we dividing this thing by? So since this only has 2, and we need it to have 3, we bring the second one down.
There it is.
There's only one of these.
Thank God.
Questions on this here so far? Now we repeat the process and we see what do we need to multiply x squared by to get it to be negative x squared. The x squareds are already the same, so just because we're trying to get x squared to be the same as negative x squared. Well, the x squareds are already matching. We just need to change it from positive to negative. So we're going to multiply it by negative 1. And we distribute the negative 1. Negative 1 times x squared is negative x squared. Negative 1 times 4x is negative 4x.
I get it. I get it.
Negative 1 times 2 is plus 2.
Yes. I get it. I get it.
Oh no, I wrote 12 originally. That should be 2. And the last thing we need to do is subtract. Negative x squared minus negative x squared is 0. Negative 4x minus negative 4x is negative, or 2 minus 2 is. And since there's no other numbers to bring down, that's it. So our answer is 2x squared minus 1.
What's the minus 1 again? Oh, right there when we...
Questions on 23. Questions on this here?
Why did I bring it out a plus?
I did 2 because I miswrote 2 as 12.
Oh,
Okay, so where the 5x and then the 4x,
Mhm.
I have negative x squared. And so do you just like, I don't understand that.
Negative 5x squared. So how we got to just negative x squared?
Yes.
Negative 5 plus 4. Because what we're saying is negative 5 minus negative 4. Because the numbers in front, negative 5 minus negative 4 is,
Okay.
because our negative negative, if we subtract negative 4, guys, the negative negative minus negative 4 is the same as plus 4. And negative 5 plus 4, 4 minus 5 is negative 1. Now we still have the x squared giving us negative x squared. We bring down the minus 4x. Now we didn't have enough terms, so we brought down, it should have been 2, not 12, and then did this again. Questions on 23? Yes. We'll do this one here with synthetic. Now there is one thing I do want to change. I want to change it from minus x cubed to plus x cubed. The only thing that this will do is mainly make it different from the answer key in the back. because the answer key in the back is with it being negative x cubed, not positive. We're changing it for this here. Now with synthetic division, the first thing we have to do is take what we're dividing this by, our x squared minus x plus 3. And this time, we're not getting the x by itself, we're going to get the x squared. We can subtract 3 from both sides. And then we would, it doesn't matter which one we move first, but we will have to move the 3 and the x. We have to get the x squared term by itself. Now because we do have two terms, the x and the minus 3, we need a little bit bigger cubby and 2 lines. Now the numbers going across the top for our polynomial still work the same. We have 3 for our x to the 4th, 1 for our x cubed, 8 for our x squared, 5 for our x and 3. The first number, so our 3, we drop it all the way down. The 1 next to it comes down 1. So we drop the first number all the way down, and we drop the second number down 1. The numbers that go in the cubby, we would have the negative 3. Now we don't put x, we put the number in front of the x, which is 1.
Also, we're using what?
For the ones that go in the box. So when we did this earlier with x equals 5, we put the 5 in the cubby. Here, since we have x squared, well, the number in front of x is 1, and then we have the minus 3. Questions on this here? Now when we do the multiplication, we're multiplying the 1 and negative 3 by the number below the second line. So for the first one here, it would be 3. 1 times 3 is 3. The first number is always going to go above the second line. The second number, our negative 3, is still going to multiply with the 3. Negative 3 times 3 is?
Okay.
Everything is going to be multiplied with this bottom number. 3 times negative 3.
Okay, so walk me through what the
3 times 3. Negative 9.
What do we do first?
Because we have more than 2 terms.
So x equals, we're using the 1 and the negative 3.
1 times 3 is
Right.
3.
Oh, so we multiply both of those by the same one first.
Yep.
So we put the one in blue, the second one.
I put it in blue just so it'll be a little bit different. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9.
So we put the second one that we multiplied in under the upper.
Second one goes on top of the first line. The 1 goes on top of the second. Guys.
So it's negative 1.
1 plus 3.
Oh, 4.
8 plus negative 9.
1. Negative 1.
Now we're doing 1 times 4. Negative 3 times is?
Well, I don't know.
Because again, we're multiplying by that bottom number. So since we did it once, we're now on to 4. So we do 4 times 1, which is 4. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. The first number goes with the bottom line. The second number goes with the second, the line higher up. And then we add again. Negative 1 plus 4 is 5 plus negative 12 is negative. Now we're going to do this again. 1 times 3. Then we're going to do our negative 3 times, which is negative 9.
Okay.
And then we add negative 7 plus 3 is
Negative 4.
negative 4. Our 3 plus negative 9 is
6.
negative 6. Questions on this so far? Is there another number out here? So we're done. Now, one thing that might be helpful with this here, it's a different color than those. We're just going to bring that last number down so they're all in the same line. Now, how many numbers did we have inside the box here? How many numbers did we have for our remainder? How many numbers do we have here?
2. So we have 2 remainders. Oh, okay.
So these last two, the negative 4 and negative 6, are both part of the remainder. So the negative 4 would have x. So the remainder would be negative 4x minus 6. Outside of the box, just like previously, our 3 is our term without x. 4 is our term with x squared. So our final answer is 3x squared plus 4x plus 3 plus.
Negative 4x minus 6 over 1x minus 3. Oh, x minus x plus 3.
X squared minus
X plus 3, because we put it over what we're dividing by.
Wait a minute, go over here.
Now again, with the long division, guys, with the division on the test, you can pick which way you want to do this, either synthetic or long division.
Oh, I'm good